Hello and welcome to Art Rhode Island. I'm Martina Windels. Today we will take a look at art museums and art centers in Rhode Island. Joining me in the studio are Lisa Goddard. Hello. Lisa is the director of the Newport Art Museum. She's also a printmaker and a former teacher. And she was a television and radio producer. Actually, she worked here at Channel 36 as a summer intern in 1972. So welcome back. John Smith, the director of the RISD Museum. Prior to joining the RISD Museum last year, John was the director of the Smithsonian Institution's Archives of American Art and served at the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh for 11 years. Hello.
Hi. And
Richard Fishman, a sculptor, designer, and professor of visual arts at Brown University. Richard was instrumental in founding the Creatives Art Council at Brown University, which he directs. Designed by renowned architects Dillis, Scofidio, and Renfro, the Granoff Center for Creative Arts opened its door on the campus of Brown University last year. Welcome, and thank you all for coming here today. I'd like to ask each of you to briefly introduce your institution. What can we expect to see or do when we go there? Start with Lisa.
Thank you, and thank you for having us on the program. The Newport Art Museum is a 100-year-old art museum and school. We are located on Bellevue Avenue in Newport, and we're a really vibrant art community, an accredited museum focused on the arts of the region of Rhode Island.
So it's mostly Rhode Island artists who
Rhode Island
and collect?
People who have been influenced by Rhode Island, so many people who came to the Rhode Island School of Design, for instance, and then pledged the Coop. So we had early exhibitions of Dale Chihuly. We have several pieces of his art in our collection, but needless to say, he is no longer a Rhode Island resident. We're also an art school. While the museum is 100 this year, our art school will be 100 next year. So education, arts education, is a core part of our mission. And we are really the cultural gathering place for the Newport area for programs.
Do you want to talk about the RISD Museum next?
Well, the RISD Museum we consider ourselves an encyclopedic museum, and what we mean by that is that we try and represent really sort of the full range of world art from ancient Egypt. You can come and see a mummy at the museum, to contemporary art
Buddha
from around the globe. We're associated with the Rhode Island School of Design, with the college. We have 86,000 objects in our collection, and we're both a teaching museum for the students at RISD, but in a larger sense, we are the Providence region's largest museum.
Rhode Island's too, right?
We're Rhode Island's largest museum, yeah. Yeah.
I always thought that besides the MFA, RISD Museum was it in New England.
We are.
So.
No, we're definitely one of the biggest.
And the Granoff Center.
The Granoff Center for the Creative Arts just opened its doors 18 months ago. It was conceived by the faculty in the arts about 10 years ago with the goal of fostering interdisciplinarity and experimentation, not only between arts departments, but between the arts, science, technology, and the humanities. The core uses are music, theater, dance, creative writing, literary arts, and visual art, as well as film and video. And our major goal is to open up new pathways for artists to work with each other and artists to work with other faculty in other departments. But we are also an institution that seeks relationships with the community as well.
All three organizations have, besides being a museum and as such being an educational institution, all three organizations have very strong educational ties. So let's talk about that a little bit, because each of you have that in a different way, but I'm assuming you sort of faced same problems, same challenges. Again,
Well, I
start
think
with you and
we're
jump
a little
in
bit
at any
different.
point.
From RISD and from Brown in that we are not an accredited school or college or university.
So it's a museum school.
Our museum school not only has arts enrichment programs where someone might come to take a studio class in ceramics or printmaking or painting or what have you. We offer extensive outreach programs across the state of Rhode Island. We do outreach in our social service agencies and elementary and middle schools in Newport County. So our belief really is that arts education is the pathway through which people become lifelong art lovers. So it is really at the center of our mission.
At the RISD Museum, I would assume that probably a third of the visitors is college students.
They are. They are. I mean, you know, we and not only RISD students, but we have very close relationships with Brown University, with all of the colleges and universities in this area. So our collections are used not only what one sees in the galleries, but classes come and use material that's in storage. Our prints, drawings, photographs, costume and textiles are really teaching collections.
Very hands-on.
Very hands-on. But in addition to that, we have programs that, you know, from sort of something we called, you know, tours for Tots. So we're kind of, you know, to Lisa's point, really trying to engage people at the earliest possible moment to really engender that feeling that museums are places that are exciting, that are interesting, and that are welcoming. And you know, then through really sort of every generation, we have programs that really cater to specific interests and age groups, but also a number of programs that try and bring all of those people together for one experience of looking at art, talking about art, thinking about art. So, yeah, as you said, and I think we all agree, education, in a way, is part of everything that we do, and sort of leads the discussion, whether it's planning an exhibition, planning a program. It's really sort of thinking about education in its broadest possible, in the broadest possible ways.
Yeah, and you're very involved with the Providence Public Schools, too, right?
We are. We bring in about 16,000 school kids every year from this region, and you know, our goal is to make a visit to the museum something that's very exciting, very fun, so people will actually go home and, you know, talk to their parents and want to come back to the museum. Bring their parents. Many of the parents you know, frequently haven't been to the museum since they were school kids. So we're really trying to kind of create an environment where you know, younger people can actually be real advocates for the museum.
And John, actually, I want to let you know that when my kids were little, I used to walk down the hill at least once a week and come to the RISD Museum, and I always gave them each a sketchbook and a pen, or pencil rather, not a pen. And they would draw the Buddha, we'd draw in the galleries, and that was something that I think created lifelong passion for art and art making in all three of my children.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, this today, as we were kind of preparing for this, a woman here at the studio was saying to me that her son, he was about 6 years old, she took him to the Dale Chihuly exhibition that was at the museum several years ago, and he still talks about that exhibition. So the ways that museums can really have an impact on the lives of younger people, and really kind of, I think museums are working harder than ever to really provide an experience that is exciting, dynamic. There's a lot of competition for everyone's attentions nowadays, and I think museums have had to, while still trying to kind of hold on to some traditions in arts educations, have also realized that there are a lot of different approaches that we need to experiment with.
Now, as far as the educational component, I'll get back to that once more. It's a little different with Brown, because the Granoff Center is currently more focused inward, as in mostly addressing the student and the faculty,
Well,
right?
it was obviously as part of an educational institution. That is its core mission.
Yeah.
We do have an exhibition space. We have a gallery, and we have shows of work by faculty, students, and guest artists from around the country and internationally, but a very small exhibition program compared to either of my colleagues' wonderful institutions. Just by the way, as a student at Rhode Island School of Design many years ago, the museum was essential to what all of us as students could look to and look across the centuries to see the kinds of things that were done there. So it's a very important part of the education of the students in various institutions around the city and Rhode Island. So at Brown, the difference between what the Granoff Center for the Creative Arts does and what the individual arts departments do, and by the way, the individual arts departments did not move from their individual sites.
Really important
The
point,
center
right?
is designed to bring people together to create new opportunities to create art in the forms that I had described, but also to create relationships between people, to create new courses. No department has any permanent space in the building. It's a very democratic, I almost think of it as a utopian kind of effort.
Well, it's interesting because in a way it makes a void, and that's where things can happen. At least that's what, when I came and visited you, that's what I came away with.
It is
to
an
make
opening.
space for an
Yes.
exchange that couldn't happen somewhere else.
Yes, and while the building is substantial, located on Angel Street near Thayer, there aren't many spaces in the building for the size of the building, and that was so that we could create spaces that no other department had. We have 3 or 4 big studios that allow everything from performance to sculpture to dance to actually lectures take place in some of these studios as well.
Very nice new digs.
Nice, very nice. And it is causing a lot of new efforts to be invented within the Brown community.
So invigorating.
Yes.
And you will have more community involvement,
Well,
or invite the public to join you down the road, I understand.
Yes, the public can always drop in during hours, and the gallery is certainly open to the public. We don't offer courses to the public. We offer events. This past year we had over 140 events in the gallery and throughout the facility, which were open to the public.
Well, big buzzword here, community outreach. That's probably, for both of you, big topic. How to get more people to come to the museum, how to engage the community.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's several ways of looking at that. All of us have the responsibility to make our museums and public spaces accessible to people. After all, what we hold as a museum is in the public trust. So it's very important for museums to develop ways to bring the museum to people if they can't come to the museum. And some of the ways that we're doing that are by offering after-school arts enrichment programs with the Boys and Girls Clubs, things like that.
Where you actually go
Where we go
there.
on site to their location and provide arts experiences. We do that with our elder citizens. We have a wonderful program called Artful Elders, where we not only invite these elderly people, who many of whom have never had experiences with art making, so they might come and work in the ceramic studio, and then we take art out to their locations as well. But I think what's important is museums are striving to create this community dynamic, both in the real world, on site at the museum and off site, but also virtually. So we have a number of programs that are really designed to engage virtual audiences. And
How do you do that?
well, one of the ways we do it is we have a virtual contest themed to go with our current exhibitions. And anybody anywhere around the world who links to our Facebook page can upload their submission for the contest. The public juries, the pieces that are in the contest, and the winner of the contest is invited to exhibit at the school, the Coleman Center for Creative Studies. One recent winner was from California. She was a graphic designer.
So that's pretty far reach.
Yeah, it's reaching outside the walls.
Mm-hmm. And that's
right.
for you.
Well,
I mean, we've talked about the fact there's a lot of people that still have not been to the RISD museums. So
right.
Like there's certain audiences that can be still reached. So what do you do?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there are a number of things. I think to Lisa's point, certainly in many ways, once a museum enters into the virtual world with your website, in a way, we all become global museums. Our audiences, for all of us, are global. We're as easy to access for someone online who lives in Providence. It's just as easy for someone who lives in India to access what we're doing and what we're developing online, to get to know our collections and our programs. So there's certainly a strong push, I think, just in museums in general, to develop a rich content. So it's not good enough for museums just to have on their websites, these are our hours, this is how you get to us, these are a few images from our collection, but museums are really thinking much more in depth about how do you develop programs that are very specific to an online engagement. But I also want to just go back for a second to sort of say, this idea of kind of community involvement and engagement, and this idea of about all, sort of the metric of how many people are you serving. I think it's also really important for all of us to think about the quality of the experience, that it isn't always just about, trying to outdo oneself year after year with more people coming into the museum, but also that focus on the kind of experience that they're having once they get into the museum. So I think to all of us, the point we're making, that the experience is rich and complex, and they want to come back multiple times. So it's not just a one-off
Not a flash in the pan.
So it is something. So, that focus on, yes, we want to reach as many people as possible in every platform that we have, both physically and online, and going out into the community, but also really focusing on a quality of experience in all of those arenas as well.
At the same time, you are planning to make the website a stronger tool, or
Absolutely.
give it a stronger presence, right? Because it's sort of, it's almost required
it's
at
vital.
this point.
I mean, it's how people, one of the key ways that people learn and discover.
We talked about this the other day, and about the added responsibilities of and resources needed for a website. But it occurred to me also that the outreach occurs in spite of ourselves because of social media.
That's right.
No matter what you do and how you limit your web presence, we're known out there throughout the world because of social media.
That's right.
For example, a student working on a project in our facility designed a small video to make science accessible through a visualization to a wider public. And I was told the other day that over 700,000 people had looked at that video. So no matter what we do, it's out there.
Yeah.
And so I think
that's the student you hired to do the promotion for the Granoff Center, right?
Actually, we should have.
Yeah,
but we did very well.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We've done a few. We've been only open, as I said, a relatively short period of time compared to the hundreds of years cumulatively between my colleagues. Although Brown will be celebrating its 250th anniversary in 2 years. But in any event, in terms of reaching out to the community, if you know the building, on the facade, there is a video screen that can come down, and we invited the community last summer to come and watch a special screening of Where the Wild Things Are. It was enormously successful, and we'll be doing several more of those this summer.
That's very exciting. It's a great spot too, at the where it's situated at the building,
yes,
the
and
terrace ground. So
it brings little business to some of the vendors who come to the
well,
to
it's
the
a
site.
picnic spot. It's grass, and so
yes, and popcorn was free.
Popcorn is free. Excellent. We'll remember that.
Yes.
Speaking about 250 years old, you have a birthday too.
We actually have 4 birthdays
few
in
birthdays.
5 years. So we've broken it down to exist, if you will, with our mission. This year is the 100th birthday of the founding of the Newport Art Museum, originally called the Art Association of Newport. So we're celebrating our role as a museum this year. Next year, our school will be 100, so we're celebrating arts education, and I would love to bring you all into the mix for next year. In 2014, our signature building, the John N.A. Griswold House, which is a national landmark building and considered the premier example of Richard Morris Hunt's domestic architecture, the stick style that he pioneered in the 1860s, will be celebrating its 150th anniversary. So that calls to mind our role as an institution in historic preservation.
So 4 years of...
Well, so that's 3. Then we get a break.
Okay.
And in 2016, the Art Association moving into the Griswold House 100 years ago will take shape. So we have an opportunity for multiple birthdays, which is really great.
They know how to party in Newport. I wanted to come back to your point of the web, but sort of talking about that it's also the presence in the museum, because one of the recent exhibitions is the Spencer Finch show. Mm-hmm. It was in the Chase Center, and I don't think you can actually put that experience on the web, and I think that is very good, because you have to go in that room and see these glass panels moving and the reflection. And so I think there's sort of still, besides this web presence and the social media, I think there's still a real strong point for actually going and touching it.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think you wouldn't hear any argument from any of us that experience of being in a museum, being in a gallery, any kind of space, really having that sort of personal, one-on-one sort of encounter with the physical object is important, or is sort of irreplaceable in a way. I think what one looks to do online and on the web is not try and replicate the experience of visiting a museum or looking at art in the way that you would in a museum, but in a way kind of creating a different kind of authenticity online. But certainly there are things that simply can't be experienced except there physically encountering it face to face. And I
think that actually becomes increasing.
And certainly the Spencer Finch was exhibition that was up in the museum earlier this year is a prime example of that.
I don't think museums are going away any time ever, actually, because we are human and we have a physical presence and we want to touch things and we want to be affected by the environment. So if you think about video, it's a very different experience to look at it on a small screen, even if you have a large screen, than to go into a video installation in a museum or a gallery and to be enveloped by the sound, to be enveloped by what you're looking at. And then the other thing is touch. People want to have a tactile relationship, or at least see it so that they can tell what it is. You can't look at a John Singer Sargent and know how he painted an eye and a nuance of a brush stroke on the nose until you go up close to it. That's so right. Both educationally and experientially, the museum is not leaving us.
And people go to museums for so many different reasons. I mean, certainly people go because they're passionate about an artist or an exhibition or just the experience of being in an environment where there are other people who love art. People go to those places to reflect.
This is the perfect lead up into the closing, actually, because I was going to ask you, why does art matter and what role does art play for us or in the community? So
can I jump right in?
Well, you got ahead of me. You already started the answer before I got to. Perfect.
I believe that art matters because it starts with an individual and tells the human story that we can share across time and space. And through that, it builds that individual's confidence, so that that person then can build and transform community. So I believe art is absolutely foundational to our communities.
Richard?
Well, I agree with, of course, with everything you've said, and many of the things we've said about the looking at art and objects in museums speak to that. The other thing that I think is terribly important is that it makes people look at the world differently, from different perspectives. Art has changed significantly over time as artists challenge the assumptions about what art might be. So art helps us understand our world, and art helps us understand what it's like to be human.
Yeah, I mean, I probably couldn't say it much better than what, really than what Richard and Lisa have said. That it really does, you know, I think it allows us to connect with people who are different from ourselves. I think, you know, it at its best, I think it increases our empathy, our compassion, and it really does help us understand where we fit in to a world that is very complex, very sophisticated, very challenging, and that art does sort of question the conventions, affirms our beliefs at times, challenges our beliefs, but ultimately it really does kind of increase our own understanding of what it means to live in the world.
And it also is our primary way of communicating who we are as individuals. So if you go back to the art making as opposed to the art experience, being able to record our thoughts either in words or in action or in visual arts is a fundamental part of our humanity.
Yeah.
So go look at art in a museum or a gallery, anywhere, and enjoy it. Thank you once more for joining me here today. Until next time, I'm Martina Windels for Art Rhode Island. Goodbye.